Native American views on sex, love, and relationships take center stage in today's video. We're delving into the often unaddressed realm of dating and intimate connections within First Nation communities. Historical perspective. While exploring the diverse world of First Nation Native American societies, it's crucial to begin with a historical perspective on relationships and marriage. This exploration not only reveals the richness of their cultures, but also highlights the contrasts with European standards that came to dominate later. In many Native American societies, the concept of marriage was not tied to a rigid structure. Unlike the monogamous model often emphasized in European cultures, Native American communities often practiced more flexible forms of unions. For instance, some tribes were known for allowing polygamous relationships where an individual could have multiple spouses. This was not just about personal preference, it was deeply rooted in the social and economic fabric of the tribe. In societies where men might be lost to war or hunting accidents, polygamy was a means to ensure the welfare of all community members. Another aspect where First Nation societies showed remarkable diversity was their recognition of same-sex unions and fluid gender roles. In many tribes, individuals who would today be identified under the LGBTQ+ umbrella were not only accepted but often revered. These individuals, sometimes referred to as two-spirit people, played unique roles in their societies. They were often seen as bridges between the genders and sometimes involved in same-sex unions that were recognized and respected by the community. The perception of marriage in Native American societies was also distinct in that it was less about legal bonds and more about social and personal relationships. Marriages were often arranged by families, but with the consent of individuals involved. These arrangements were not merely transactional, they were seen as strategic and affectionate unions that could bring families and tribes together. The marriage ceremonies and rituals in different tribes varied significantly, but were always deeply symbolic. Some tribes had elaborate ceremonies involving feasts, dances, and rituals that could last several days. Others had simpler ceremonies focusing on the exchange of gifts or symbolic items like blankets or wampum belts. These ceremonies were not just a celebration of the union of two people, but a communal event, reinforcing the interconnectedness of the tribal members. The initial contact with European settlers marked the beginning of significant changes with these practices. European settlers brought with them their own beliefs and norms regarding marriage and sexuality, which often clashed with the existing practices of Native American societies. Missionaries and colonists frequently sought to impose their standards, leading to a gradual erosion of traditional customs. Courtship and marriage rituals. The approaches to courtship varied greatly among different tribes, each with its own unique customs and traditions. In some tribes, courtship was initiated by the woman or her family, a stark contrast to many Western societies. For example, in certain Plains tribes, a woman might place a carefully prepared meal outside a man's lodge to indicate her interest, an act both subtle and deeply symbolic. In other tribes, courtship rituals were more elaborate. The Zuni, for instance, had a ritual where young men would present intricately carved sticks to the women they were interested in. If the woman accepted the stick, it signified her reciprocation of interest. It was not just a personal exchange, but a communal acknowledgement of the budding relationship. Families and communities often played a significant role in the courtship process. It wasn't uncommon for families to arrange meetings or facilitate the courtship. These arrangements, while seemingly restrictive, were often made with the well-being and preferences of the young individuals in mind. Families considered various factors like social standing, compatibility, and the potential for strengthening community ties. Marriage in Native American cultures was not just a union between two people, it was a bond that extended to the families in the community. The rituals involved in marriage ceremonies were deeply symbolic, reflecting the values and beliefs of the tribe. In some cultures, the couple would perform a series of rituals, like exchanging gifts or participating in ceremonial dances to signify their union. One notable example is the Navajo wedding ceremony. The ceremony involved intricate rituals like the preparation of a special cornmeal cake, which the couple would share. This act was a symbol of their commitment to support and nourish each other. Many Native American courtship and marriage rituals were deeply intertwined with spiritual and natural elements. Tribes often incorporated aspects of their natural environment and spiritual beliefs into these rituals. For instance, the use of certain animals or natural symbols in courtship rituals was common, reflecting the tribe's connection to the land and their spiritual beliefs. It's important to note, though, the immense diversity among different tribes. While some tribes had formalized courtship rituals, others might have had more informal practices. The Sioux, for example, had a tradition where a young man would serenade a woman outside her lodge. If she found his intentions sincere, she'd invite him in, signifying her acceptance of his courtship. The role of sexuality. Exploring the role of sexuality in Native American societies reveals a tale strikingly different from the often conservative European perspectives. In many First Nation cultures, sexuality was viewed as a natural, integral part of life, devoid of the guilt and shame commonly associated with it in other societies. Sexuality was not a taboo subject in many cultures. The openness extended to various forms of sexual expression and orientations. The acceptance of two-spirit people in many tribes is a testament to this, as they were respected as individuals who embodied both masculine and feminine spirits. Education about sexuality and sexual health was an important aspect of upbringing in several tribes. The education was often integrated into broader cultural practices and rites of passage. Young members of the tribe were informed about the physical, emotional, and social aspects of sexuality, preparing them for adult relationships. This was not limited to the mechanics of sex, but also included lessons on respect, consent, and responsibilities. In many Native American cultures, women held significant power and autonomy in sexual relationships. Contrary to many contemporary norms, women often had the freedom to choose their partners and were active participants in sexual decision-making. This empowerment reflects a broader respect for women in many Native American societies, where they were often seen as equals to men. The arrival of Europeans brought drastic changes to these perspectives. European settlers and missionaries imposed their own views on sexuality, often labeling native practices as immoral or savage. This imposition led to a suppression of traditional sexual norms and practices and introduced a sense of shame and guilt around sexuality that was previously absent. Contemporary dating practices. Today, the dating practices in First Nation communities reflect a blend of traditional values and modern influences, navigating the complex landscape of cultural heritage and contemporary norms. Younger Native Americans often find themselves straddling two worlds, respecting traditional values while navigating the modern dating scene. The use of technology and social media has introduced new ways of meeting and interacting with potential partners. Yet many people still go with traditional values when it comes to relationships. There's a growing interest among young Native Americans to explore and revive traditional courtship practices. This includes participating in tribal dances, ceremonies, and community gatherings as a means of finding partners who share a deep connection to their cultural roots. Now it's time to hear from you. What was most intriguing about this exploration? Let us know in the comments section below.